China to challenge U.S. tariffs under the World Trade Organization, while Canada and Mexico vow retaliatory measures. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrives in Panama at the start of a Central American tour. And Financial Secretary Paul Chan talks about government expenditure cuts. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an order to impose 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican products and an additional 10% duty on goods from China. The U.S. says the three are not doing enough to curb the entry of OP fentanyl into the U.S., while accusing Canada and Mexico of not helping to reduce illegal immigration across their borders. Now speak Kareem with more.
This is Linda Schlesinger-Wagner. She owns Skinny Tees, an apparel company in Birmingham, Michigan, where most of her products are made in China. With Donald Trump's decree to impose additional 10% tariff on goods from China, Schlesinger-Wagner is fearing the worst.
Skinny Tees happens to do a lot of business in China, and we love our factory, we love the people we work with, and is this going to affect our business? You bet it is.
China State Television CCTV showed a screenshot of remarks by a spokesman for the Ministry of Commerce saying Trump's unilateral decision seriously violates World Trade Organization rules. Beijing, which insists fentanyl is an American problem, may file a lawsuit with the WTO and take countermeasures. Reacting to 25% tariffs on Canadian products, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Ottawa would impose duties on 155 billion Canadian dollars or 107 billion US dollars worth of American goods, starting with alcohol and fruit. He spoke directly to the American people.
It will have real consequences for you, the American people. As I have consistently said, tariffs against Canada will put your jobs at risk. They will raise costs for you, including food at the grocery stores and gas at the pump.
Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum ordered the government to implement Plan B, which entails 5 to 20% duties on American products such as pork, cheese, fresh produce, manufactured steel and aluminium. In 2023, U.S. trade with Canada across their 9,000-kilometer border was worth $2.5 billion a day. Canada exported 550 billion Canadian dollars worth of goods and services, 30% in energy and 50% in manufacturing. Exports to the U.S. make up 17.8% of Canada's GDP and involves 2.4 million Canadian jobs. With Mexico, U.S. exported $322 billion worth of goods and services in 2023, while importing $475 billion of the same. One-third of Mexico's GDP depends on exports to the U.S., with analysts saying GDP in 2025 will fall 12% because of the tariffs. Nazri Karim, TVB News.
Donald Trump ordered airstrikes on Islamic State targets in Somalia. The U.S. president wrote on Truth Social that he agreed to the airstrikes on a senior ISIS planner because these killers, who we found living in caves, threaten the United States and our allies. Trump says the caves were destroyed. He blamed his predecessor Joe Biden for not acting quickly enough in the past, but said under his administration, the message to ISIS is clear. We will find you and we will kill you. The U.S. military released stills of the planes leaving an aircraft carrier. The Pentagon indicated multiple people were killed. It is not clear if the unnamed planner that Trump referred to is among the dead. 6 Americans who have been detained in Venezuela in recent months were freed by President Nicolas Maduro after talks with Donald Trump's special envoy. Richard Grenell announced the freeing of the 6 men on social media, but their names were not released. He met Maduro on Friday. The trip also focused on Trump's efforts to deport Venezuelans back to their home country. Maduro, appearing on state television after Grenell had left Venezuela, said the visit yielded initial agreements but did not provide any details. Trump cheered the move on his social media, saying Grenell was bringing 6 hostages home from Venezuela. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has arrived in Panama on the first stop of his Central American tour and his first foreign trip in office. He is trying to press President Donald Trump's top priority, curbing illegal immigration and U.S. efforts to reclaim control over the Panama Canal. It's an unusual destination for the maiden voyage of America's top diplomat, whose predecessors generally favored Europe or Asia. The American-built canal was turned over to the Panamanians in 1999, and they object strongly to Trump's demand to hand it back. A key priority of curbing China's growing influence is part of the campaign to take back the canal. After Panama, Rubio will visit El Salvador, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and the Dominican Republic. Thai media has reported that one more Hong Kong resident who was illegally detained in Myanmar has been rescued. The Thai government said it will make arrangements as soon as possible for the 31-year-old female victim to return to the SAR. Meanwhile, Financial Secretary Paul Chan emphasized that cutting government expenditure will be the key theme of his budget address at the end of this month. Areas that will be affected by the expense cut include educational and medical fields. The finance chief also noted the community has reached a consensus on adjusting the $2 public transport concessionary fare scheme and stressed authorities are looking into various methods of implementation. Timothy Lee reports.
Hong Kong has seen a surge in visitors over the course of the Lunar New Year holidays. The positive tourism scene has prompted Financial Secretary Paul Chan to call the Year of the Snake a good beginning for Hong Kong. With the city's economic figures for Q4 and the entirety of last year set to be announced on Monday, the finance chief has forecast the numbers will indicate Hong Kong's return to economic stability and growth. Regarding the budget set to be announced at the end of this month, Chan repeated his earlier estimate that the government will end up with a deficit of less than $100 billion during the current fiscal year. He hopes the government budget will strike a balance in the next few years through measures such as cutting expenditure. The FS said there could be further cuts in areas such as education and healthcare, adding that certain universities may have to find new sources of income on their own. Meanwhile, Chan stressed the community has reached a consensus that there is a need to adjust the $2 public transport concessionary fare scheme for senior citizens, emphasizing the continuation of its current form is unsustainable. But what do residents think of the proposed adjustment? This woman says she hopes authorities will maintain the scheme, adding that she's already struggling financially.
And I do hope the government can find other ways to help the financial issue and then give the benefit to the elderly. I am a senior citizen. I wish I can continue enjoying the benefit. It's very convenient and it also saves a lot of money.
Many residents urge the government to rethink its proposal to adjust the $2 fare scheme for senior citizens, adding that it could add more pressure on the elderly and further burden those struggling with the already sluggish economy. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
A private car was found immersed in water at Kowloon Reservoir yesterday. Authorities suspect the vehicle was linked to a case where the body of a man was discovered at the reservoir 2 years ago. The Water Supplies Department has announced that it has suspended using water from the reservoir until a thorough test of the water quality is completed. The vehicle was found immersed in water by members of the public on Saturday. Sources said preliminary investigations by the police indicated the car belonged to a man whose body was found at the same reservoir in July 2023. Still ahead, the Israeli Prime Minister heading to Washington to discuss Phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire. UNESCO heritage site Machu Picchu under threat from an influx of tourists and global warming. And details of another stress test for the Kai Tak Sports Park on Tuesday. Welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is heading to the U.S. where discussions on Phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire are due to start. The second part should mean the release of all the remaining hostages and an indefinite extension of the truce. As the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas continues to hold in Gaza, the latest hostage for prisoner exchange was the smoothest yet. David Garrett reports.
I'm leaving for a very important meeting with President Trump in Washington.
Benjamin Netanyahu ready to leave for discussions on phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire.
We'll deal with important issues, critical issues facing Israel and our region, a victory over Hamas, achieving the release of all our hostages, and dealing with the Iranian terror axis and all its components, an axis that threatens the peace of Israel, the Middle East, and the entire world.
Netanyahu and Trump will speak Tuesday. On Monday, the Israeli Prime Minister meets with Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, where he will set out Israel's position moving forward. Witkoff will pass that along to Qatar and Egypt, who are mediators between Israel and Hamas. 3 daughters overjoyed to greet their dad, freed American Israeli hostage Keith Siegel. The 65-year-old was one of 3 released by Hamas in the latest exchange of hostages and Palestinian prisoners. He was taken during the Hamas raid on Israel in October 2023. Another released hostage, French-Israeli Ofer Calderon, tightly embraces his brother, finally reunited after 480 days. I'm okay, Calderon tells him at a hospital where he's being evaluated. Meanwhile, 150 former Palestinian prisoners bust into Gaza, hugs and joy unconfined for the triumphant return. Many of these prisoners have been locked up for months or in some cases many years. Some say they were beaten. Israel has agreed to release around 2,000 Palestinians over the 6-week first phase of the ceasefire. The latest hostage release and prisoner swap went smoothly, pertinent as Netanyahu begins his trip to Washington and talks on phase 2 of the peace settlement begin. If a lasting truce is not agreed, fighting could resume in March. In another positive sign, the long-shuttered Rafah crossing between Egypt and Gaza partially reopened for medical treatments. 50 sick and wounded children were the first through. An Israeli military presence remains to stop Hamas running Rafah. Israel accuses the militant group of smuggling weapons through tunnels. Violence in other parts of the Middle East does continue. Israeli military video shows a strike on a vehicle belonging to what they call a terrorist cell in the West Bank. The Palestinian Health Ministry reports 2 were killed in the attack. David Garrett, TVB News.
Serbia students are leading mass protests and blockades of 3 bridges over the Danube River in the northern city of Novi Sad. The protests drew tens of thousands into the streets to express their anger with the country's populist leadership and to call for change. Saturday marked 3 months since a huge concrete canopy at Novi Sad's main railway station collapsed, killing 15 people. The crash on November 1st sparked a wide anti-corruption movement and months of student-led street protests. Critics believe graft led to a sloppy job during the station renovation. The protests forced Prime Minister Miloš Vučević to resign last week, though he remains acting Prime Minister in a technical mandate. He urged pro-government supporters to avoid getting involved in the protests. Peru's UNESCO heritage site Machu Picchu is under threat. An influx of tourists and global warming are among a range of issues plaguing the Andean landmark. TVB News was at Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu is one of the most iconic archaeological sites in the world, bearing testament to ancient architectural wonders of the Inca civilization. Nestled high in the Andes Mountains, Machu Picchu's inaccessibility kept it away from Spanish conquistadors for more than 300 years. It remained hidden from the outside world for another century after Peru's independence from Spain until its discovery in 1911, earning its nickname, the Lost City of the Incas. Hong Kong native Li Sun is a tour guide in Peru. She recounted how she saw tourists would a decade ago casually climb and tread on the relics, showing how lax conservation efforts were at the time.
Peru has a lot to offer. It's not just Machu Picchu. While there should be better tourist management measures, the government should also be more active in introducing the different cultural and ecological attractions in Peru to the world.
Hong Kong travel columnist Akio Hong noted the issues of overexposure to tourism and the rapid construction of tourist facilities in Machu Picchu can affect the soil quality.
In terms of crowd control, tourism promotion and management, China's experience is of much reference value. We're also planning to introduce about 30 Chinese-made electric buses in Machu Picchu to reduce carbon emissions.
Because of climate change, Machu Picchu is plagued by more frequent heavy rains and mudslides. Many are of the view that developing countries such as Peru face more pressing political or economic challenges, so guarding their monuments against the impact of climate change is not a priority. Machu Picchu was spared the impact of colonial rulers some 400 years ago, and the question now is how to protect it from the modern threats of mass tourism and environmental degradation. In face of U.S. tariffs, some Hong Kong companies plan to explore emerging markets in South America to reduce reliance on the U.S. market. This Hong Kong toy company sees the potential of the Latin American market, including Peru. Its CEO said Peru has signed a new free trade agreement with Hong Kong, and he is planning to bring his staff to visit Peru this year. Professor Liu Ningrong, Associate Vice President of the University of Hong Kong, said, compared with ASEAN and Middle Eastern countries, Latin America is rich in minerals and agricultural products that China needs, with opportunities presented to Hong Kong firms. Still, Liu noted companies should be cautious when investing there, as the legal frameworks and safeguards may not be as well developed. Another crowd management test at the Kai Tak Sports Park on Tuesday. The event will involve some 50,000 spectators, and for the first time, the roof of the main stadium will be retracted for noise check. 63,000 people packed the Kai Tak Sports Park in a stress test last month. Tuesday evening, the park will be put to test again in a Hong Kong Premier League Under-22 match between Kitchee and North District. Some 44,000 civil servants in various community groups will take part in the stress test. Same as before, entrants cannot bring their long umbrellas and water bottles in. The Environmental Protection Department will monitor the noise level inside and outside the stadium.
When the retractable roof was closed was very good because when audience were cheering for their teams, the sound effects was very good. So this time we are going to open the retractable roof to see how the ambience as well as other production effects would be going on.
This time, the south stand of the main stadium, which was off limits last time, will be filled with spectators with simulated emergencies for the drill. They include fans throwing objects and fire alarms going off. The MTR will step up services of the Tuen Ma line with special entry and exit arrangements at Kai Tak and Sung Wong Toi stations.
On last occasion, maybe there's some bottleneck on the West Bridge towards the Sung Wong Toi MTR station. So on this occasion, we will also make some arrangement.
Set to officially open in March, the Kai Tak Sports Park will conduct one more crowd management test on February 16th with over 50,000 participants. Hong Kong's largest ever Mark 6 jackpot tonight. The total amount up for grabs, $188 million. The record Lunar New Year snowball draw attracted long queues at this off-course betting branch in North Point. Similar sights at the so-called luckiest branch on Stanley Street in Central. According to records from the Hong Kong Jockey Club, 47 jackpot tickets were sold there. The first division prize fund is estimated to reach $188 million for a single $10 winning unit. The chance of winning the jackpot is about 1 in 14 million. Who and whether there will be a lucky one will be unveiled at 9:30 tonight. During the Lunar New Year period, Hong Kong's movie industry is facing an unexpected challenge. There are too many local films of the same genre, comedy. To help the industry stay on track, stakeholders have suggested that more small-budget productions maintain operations and make greater efforts in exploring other markets. Sekur Ip has more.
There is an abundant supply of comedy movies with a Lunar New Year theme or setting. 6 out of 7 Hong Kong films available during the holiday period belong to the same genre, more than double what was on offer during the same period in the past. Crucinder Hong, chairman of the Hong Kong Motion Picture Industry Association, thinks it's not a good sign. He says this will result in competition cancelling each other out, with production companies suffering the most.
The film industry has been struggling for years, with a survey indicating the last year's box office was only 1.3 billion Hong Kong dollars, the worst in 13 years. At least 9 cinemas closed down last year.
Earlier this month, young director Chui Zi-Yeo held a screening and talk for his debut movie, which was shot 8 years ago and finally hit the big screen this year. Apart from working with smaller-scale productions, Chui also intends to focus more on the Southeast Asian market. which is easier to enter and has a growing Cantonese-speaking audience and creative space. Data shows the number of Hong Kong films released last year was only a quarter of what it was in 2018. Collaborations with mainland China have also decreased in recent years. Tin Kai Man, chairman of the Federation of Hong Kong Filmmakers, noted that the industry has focused too much on the mainland market. Instead, they should explore multiple markets in the long run to minimize the effects of mainland regulations and restriction, he added. Last year, Hong Kong had 2 record-breaking blockbusters that reached billion-dollar box office figures. Tim hopes there will be more productions of this kind to create buzz, as local success could positively influence international markets.
Zachariah, TV News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.